Considering I call myself the Lyoko Gem, we all knew this was coming eventually.
We will protect your Earth, and we will protect your Earth, and we will protect you.
Hey guys, it's the Lyoko Gem, and welcome to another video. This time around, I'm going to be talking about a video that, honestly, should have been done a long time ago, and is finally here. So with that said, let's get into it. What if Code Lyoko and Steven Universe crossed over? Now, here's the deal. The way I do crossovers is that I like making the two shows share the same world, not the whole thing where, oh, X character fell into a dimensional portal and now they end up in Y's dimension, and then because of shenanigans, the heroes fight each other before having to team up. Because that's boring. So with that said, I'm sure you're wondering how in the world I'm gonna meld the worlds of two completely different shows like this, right? Well, here's how it would work. First, let's start by connecting the lores of the two different shows. And this is gonna have spoilers for both shows, so if you're not completely caught up with either of them, I'd suggest clicking away. But with that said, let's get into it. Thousands of years ago, an ancient race of aliens called Gems invaded the Earth with plans to suck the planet dry, to not only make more of their kind, but also to turn the Earth into an expansion of their empire. The planet was given to Pink Diamond, the newest of the diamonds, as her first colony. The only problem being that Pink Diamond had quickly fallen in love with the planet that was given to her, and as such, she begged and pleaded with her sisters and the Authority to leave the planet be, but they refused. So, Pink Diamond decided to take the planet for herself, taking on the persona of the mighty Rose Quartz, and led a rebellion that drove off the remainder of the Diamond Authority after staging the death of her former identity and giving the planet to the Crystal Gems. All was well, until the Diamond shot a deadly beam at the Earth, in retaliation that turned the remaining gems on the planet into twisted, monstrous versions of their former selves. Rose Quartz could only save two of her closest allies, while the rest of the army, and anybody else who was left on the planet, Homeworld or Crystal, was corrupted. With that, the Crystal Gems were alone and walked the Earth, attempting to catch all the corrupted monsters, and in the process, they added another to their ranks, a defective amethyst which was found in one of the Earth's kindergartens. And life was like that for thousands of years until Rose Quartz met a human being named Greg Universe, who she quickly fell in love with. But even if Rose Quartz had a happier life, the corrupted gems still rampaged, and such gems changed the fate of humanity forever. In the 1950s, Waldo Schaefer was born. He grew up and eventually became a brilliant programmer who started his own company called Carthage Tech, that not only developed great things to help the world become a better place, but also donated to charities, orphanages, and all that jazz. Waldo Schaefer was a good man, and behind every good man, there's a good family. During college, Waldo had quickly fallen in love with another brilliant programmer named Anthea Hopper, who was a huge help in managing the company and making it the great organization that it was. In around the 1980s, they got married, and soon after, they had a child. One day, in about the late 80s, tragedy had befallen their home when a corrupted monster had attacked Paris. The Crystal Gems were late to arrive, and unfortunately for them, it was too late for Anthea, and she had died at the hands of a gem monster. Rose Quartz, who was with Greg at the time, didn't even know how to apologize, having seen someone lost the life of their lover. She couldn't imagine losing Greg like that, and so she approached him, trying her best to make up for what had happened. Schaefer accepted the apology and thanked her for saving his life. But of course, after that, things changed for Schaefer. The grief-stricken man had let his wife's death get to him more than it should have, and with it, that started him with making odd decisions for his company, diverting resources and the like to some sort of secret project that no one knew about. Then, of course, it led to the eventual closure of Carthage Tech. Then, he walked away from the public eye, choosing to change his name and live in a home in the woods called the Hermitage. And well, that was it. This went public very quickly, so much so that eventually Greg even talked about it with Rose. Rose heard this and was absolutely devastated by the news that the man she had failed had thrown his life away like this. So, she quickly went to Paris, where she didn't find him at first, but never really stopped looking for the man for years. Meanwhile, the man now known as Franz Hopper had really been keeping himself busy. Grief had led to new ambition when he learned that the world was a dangerous place, seething with monsters all over. So, he did what he knew how to do best. He developed a program. That program was given the name Xana, and was designed as a way to create a world without danger. What do I mean by this? Well, Xana was a multi-agent program designed so that he could access any data network in the world, all at once, allowing him to have his eyes and ears anywhere and everywhere in the world. But simply watching wasn't enough. No, Franz Hopper needed a way for Xana to help the world no matter what. So, he developed a way for Xana to be able to easily affect the world. He developed a virtual world called Lyoko that would allow him to gain access to our world through the use of towers. And so, Xana learned more about the world at large, discovering human patterns and the like by watching over the world and learning more about humanity in and of itself. But you could imagine his surprise when Xana had discovered that some of the world's ancient temples and the likes had accessible code for him to go over. And so, they did. Xana had told Franz of everything he had learned by getting into old gem systems, by telling him about the gem race and what was documented about the war against Earth. Nothing is recorded on corruption or anything after the war, since Homeworld's firewalls are airtight and too advanced even for the likes of him. But Franz Hopper learned more about the gem race and quickly figured out that the monsters are somehow gem in origin. And honestly, he's absolutely, positively terrified. Unsure of what to do about this, he realizes that there is no defeating Homeworld. He decides that the only way to truly be safe from them is to run away to somewhere where they could never be found. But the question is, where? Homeworld had conquered the galaxy. No matter where they ran throughout the cosmos, Homeworld would eventually find them, if he could even figure out a way to build a ship capable of space travel in the first place. So, where could he possibly run from Homeworld? Well, he wanted to use Xana to build a world without danger, and the virtual world of Lyoko had towers capable of accessing the real world, so what if he could find a way to travel to Lyoko and live there forever, where he could not only protect himself, but his remaining family he had left and his daughter? He got to work, and upon getting to work, he discovered one of the many properties of the supercomputer, the Return to the Past, which allows it to go back in time and give Hopper more time to work on his project, because he has no idea how soon Homeworld will come again, if it even does. Sometime during the building of Lyoko, Rose Quartz eventually found him, and they had a long chat about what Hopper had been up to. Rose, who was pregnant with Steven at the time, insisted that he doesn't have to fear the diamonds or the corrupted gems or anything, but Hopper doesn't believe her. After a return to the past, which, by the way, doesn't affect gems, Hopper makes sure that Rose isn't able to find him, so in a sense, she never actually did. Shortly after, Rose Quartz gave birth to Steven, and the other Lyoko warriors are born as well. Finally, a few years after Steven's birth, Lyoko is ready. Hopper takes his daughter, and they escape to Lyoko to live together forever. And that's when Xana betrays them. When they arrive on Lyoko, Xana tells his creator that he is foolish and not worthy of protecting the Earth. Xana, being an artificial intelligence, has made his own decision, and his decision is that he can defeat Homeworld and truly create their perfect Earth. But Hopper refuses, and so Xana attacks, only to fail when Hopper turns off the supercomputer with both him and his daughter inside. And that's where the backstory comes to an end. And then, of course, over the years, we have the raising of a beautiful baby boy named Steven, and a bunch of kids going to Caddick Academy or something like that. You know how it goes. Now we get into the combining of the two shows, and while I originally was going to try to be professional and try and smush together the two shows' canon, or at least as close to canon timelines together as I possibly can, it just didn't work. So things are going to be a little rough, at least in terms of when things happen. But yeah. So with that said, shortly before the events of Steven Universe, Code Lyoko begins, and they start the fight against Xana, with Jeremy finding the supercomputer and all that jazz, and it's fun. Season 1 and Season 2 last over the course of the first school year for them, spanning across the month of October all the way through to June. Of course, at the end of Season 2, they learn a lot of very interesting things when Jeremy is finally able to decode Franz Hopper's diary. First of all, Aelita is not an AI and lived as a human girl on Earth. Secondly, they learn about the gems and that they are not alone in the universe, and that an ancient race of aliens tried to invade the planet. After Franz had lost his wife in an attack by some sort of gem creature, he developed Xana and Lyoko to defend from them, only to realize that they are far too dangerous and decided to make the escape to Lyoko. Near the tail end of that school year, however, the events of Steven Universe begin, and as the school year and the second season come to a close for the Lyoko Warriors, Lapis Lazuli appears and makes her escape to Homeworld. You can imagine the surprise of not only the Lyoko Warriors and Xana when this happened, with the former thinking it was some sort of attack by the latter, but of course that isn't true. However, Xana, who had just recently gotten the keys to Lyoko and escaped from the supercomputer, would take note of the water gem having escaped from Earth, and would note that this will likely cause him some trouble in the future. But everything continues on almost normally as the Lyoko Warriors have their summer vacation and Xana is scouring the internet and building his replicas and the like. But he doesn't forget about the fact that Lapis Lazuli left the Earth, and does his best to try and infect gem systems through some of their technology, but is mostly unsuccessful, finding that the old war tech is locked off through some pretty intense firewalls. Meanwhile, the rest of Season 1 of Steven Universe happens, and when Peridot connects to the Prime Kindergarten during the events of Marble Madness, Xana finds an opening to Homeworld systems, and is able to make his way there, but for the time being, he does nothing but lie in wait on Homeworld, watching, waiting, and learning. With that, Season 1 of Steven Universe continues to happen, and ends during the end of the summer. With that in mind, Season 2 of Steven Universe begins at the beginning of the school year, and with it, Season 3 of Code Lyoko. In the meantime, the Lyoko Warriors try desperately, and fail, to save Lyoko from being destroyed by Xana. But luckily, Jeremy builds it back up again. Season 4 of Lyoko begins as Season 2 of Steven Universe is going on, and the gems are on the hunt for Peridot. Eventually, the Lyoko Warriors start tracking down Xana and investigating the replicas on the internet. And when they arrive at the 4th Sector replica, that's when things really change. When Aelita and Odd are first teleported to the real world to the facility in the Amazon, they take notice of a nearby fallen spaceship, which leaves them a little bit confused, until they quickly realize that it must have been something from the Gem War. Jeremy quickly asks them to investigate it. They find a sort of back entrance to the ship, and they're surprised to find a lot of booby traps within the ship, and it gets even worse when a strange green person appears on screen, having no idea who they are and wanting to destroy them. Luckily, they're able to make it through, and when they do, they're incredibly surprised to find the crystal gems, who are even more confused to see colorful humans having arrived like this. After some brief confusion and Jeremy figuring out that this must be the crystal gems that Franz Hopper had talked about in his diary. After Steven convinces his 3 moms not to attack them, they have a little chat, and Aelita and Odd exchange with them some wild stories about Lyoko, Xana, and the like with them, while things mostly on Steven's end share what they've learned about the gems, as well as including the fact that gems are back on Earth. Needless to say, this is confusing for everybody involved, and Jeremy elects that the gems should come to France, and they should talk to them in the factory, which is agreed. The Lyoko Warriors and the Crystal Gems meet, and to say that the gems are surprised by the supercomputer is an understatement. Pearl flat out refuses to believe that a mere human could have built something like this, and well, it's hard for everybody. The Lyoko Warriors and the Crystal Gems have a Q&A with one another, and they quickly learn that gems have returned to Earth, and there's the possibility of another invasion on the horizon, and the gems have learned that Xana is far greater threat than they could have imagined. Tension also rises between them when Aelita reveals why all of this exists and that they were unable to save her mother. Eventually, it's decided that they leave each other to their own devices, but keep each other informed, and they call one another if their help is needed. And so, the rest of Steven Universe Season 2 happens, and that leads into Season 3, while the Lyoko Warriors continue about Season 4. Season 3 of Steven Universe eventually ends, along with Season 4 of Code Lyoko, with William being freed and Xana believing to have been destroyed. Everything seems to be getting better for the world with Jasper gone and the revelations that Steven learned in Season 3. Except there's one small problem. A full-scale invasion is launched on Earth at that point, except it's not the gems that have done this. At least, not really. While there are gem vessels that have been launched on Earth, they are very different. Every single one of them are possessed by Xana, and with that, we have gems flat out fused with specters as well. Xana was not destroyed. Quickly within this invasion, the Lyoko warriors are captured, and Xana looks out for the crystal gems, hoping he can find them. But they're quick to go into hiding, and in that time, Xana begins to build a perfect world in his image. Quickly, the crystal gems are able to break the Lyoko warriors out of their own jail cells, and they all go to the factory, opting to turn the supercomputer on again and try and figure out just what in the heck is going on. When they do, they're surprised to learn that Xana was destroyed and are incredibly confused as to what happened. It's William who speaks up and reveals that he lied about not remembering anything of his possession, and actually remembers quite a bit. William has learned during his possession that Xana had in fact been busy during the events of Season 4. Xana had somehow apparently gained access to Homeworld systems, and had been actually able to get onto Homeworld, and during the events of Season 2 of Steven Universe, had been busy launching a full-scale invasion on Homeworld, using a mess of materialized versions of his monsters, and William as a sort of general for his army against them. By the time he had been freed from Xana's control, he had already taken over siege of a majority of Homeworld, having only the diamonds in their courts to take out. Now, needless to say, everybody gets pretty pissed at William for withholding this information from them, and are freaking out trying to figure out what to do about the Earth being invaded by Homeworld. They note that it won't be long before Xana finds them, since they're hiding out in the factory of all places, and that they are screwed in the absolute worst ways possible. So they need a plan, and they need one quickly. Steven would take note that when they first met them, Aelita and Odd were in their Lyoko forms. If they were going to fight Xana, then they might have to do that again. Jeremy says that it's impossible for them to do that, since the Skid Bladnir has been destroyed. But it's too dangerous. They ask him what he has in mind, and he recalls the time that Odd had used a Spectre to fight in tip-top shape, but how Xana had activated the tower to try to off him. In theory, he could do the same to upload their digital forms to their real bodies, but it would be at the risk of their own lives. Peridot would intervene, saying that she could develop a firewall of some kind that could potentially be stronger than Jeremy's, in hopes of keeping the Lyoko warriors alive. All of them agree to fight, regardless of the risk. So, that's what's done, and the new team decides that they have to set off to the barn in hopes of getting their spaceship and getting off Earth into Homeworld. With that, they brave all kinds of threats and the like before finally making it to the barn. They'd fly off, have a few space battles and great escapes, only to crash land on Homeworld. They would then have to make their way through, have Xana or perhaps the Xanified Diamonds or something as the final boss, save both worlds, and Steven Universe would continue, at least with having the Diamonds or at least Blue and Yellow willing to listen to Steven, but serve as the Lyoko finale. And that's my version of a Code Lyoko and Steven Universe crossover. What do you think? Do you like it? Dislike it? What would you have done differently? Let me know in the comments below. Special thanks to my friend Dead Coder from the Code Lyoko wiki for helping me figure out if gems would be capable of remembering the returns to the past, and to Discord user Gyakusetsu for requesting this video. If you like this video, then please like, subscribe, and follow my social medias at Tumblr, Twitter, and Discord, all linked below. But thanks so much for watching. With all of that being said, this has been the Lyoko Gem, a warping out.